On with steelheadbeads.com. In this video, we're going to be going over a few ways to peg your bead safely above your hook. Now, for this presentation, we'll be using a couple systems that we provide here at Steely Ron's. First, our kingpin, which comes with banding, which allows you to floss that banding through the interior of your bead with the kingpin, pulling it through, safely pegging that bead above the hook. Our second are our center pins, which are just treated picks. Instead of being hard like your traditional pick, they've been softened by the treatment, and now they won't damage your leader. To peg our first bead, we're simply going to take our center pin and slide it to the interior of the bead. Just peg the bead on the line, press it in tightly, and then you would snip off the excess. That's one way to peg the bead safely above the hook. Second way is take your kingpin, thread your bead with the kingpin right through the interior of the bead. Take one of the bands that come with the kingpin, stretch it, then floss it through or slide it through the loop in the kingpin. Then slide your bead up to the banding on the kingpin. Then stretch the banding back on the kingpin and slide the bead up and over the banding and the leader. Now you're pegged safely above the hook. You would just snip the excess banding away from the bead and the leader, and you'd be ready to go. I'm just going to pull the banding back out, and we'll reuse that later. Third way to peg a bead on a leader is simply take your banding that comes with the kingpin and thread the banding with one end of the banding through the loop on the other end of the banding. So just simply fold the banding over and flop one end through the loop created on the other side of the banding with the folds. Now you have that bead fastened, or excuse me, you have that banding fastened to the leader. From there, we'd simply take our kingpin and thread a bead onto the kingpin, and then take the banding, thread the banding through the loop on the kingpin, and then slide the bead up to the banding and stretch the banding through the bead. Then we could go ahead and stretch the banding tight up against the leader and then snip off the excess banding later, and you're pegged, ready to fish safely above the hook. Fourth way to attach a bead to the leader is directly to the hook. Same way we just fastened or attached that banding to the leader, we'll do so to the hook. We're just going to go and thread it. I'm going to thread the banding to the hook and fasten it to the hook like we just did on the leader above. Now that it's attached to the hook, once again we'll thread a bead onto the kingpin, then thread that banding on the back of the hook through the kingpin, that is the loop of the kingpin, and then we'll floss the bead with the banding on the back of the hook, and we would snip off the excess banding away from the hook and away from the bead, and we'd be good to fish. Well, there you have it, 4 convenient ways to peg beads safely above your hook, so you won't damage your leader. With our Steely Ron kingpin and our Steely Ron center pins, they're just great ways to go. I highly recommend them. Very cost effective as well. Some of the pegging systems out there are quite expensive. I believe our center pins, you get 30 or 50 of those for $1.49, and the kingpin is I believe it's $2.79, and you get enough banding to peg approximately 50 beads, and you could go safely with either method and you won't damage your leader, so I highly recommend both. That being said, we'll see you in the next video. You're set up and ready to peg beads.